Hello, welcome back to my channel. I'm Bree. Today's video, as you can see, is my October wrap-up. I had a really good reading month. I did 2 different vlogs, I believe. So I did a horror vlog and I did a just cozy reading vlog. I read a total of 11 books, so it was a really good month for me. So I feel like October is always the time of year where I just read a lot of books. I think it's partly the spooky season. I really get into fantasy, paranormal, fall related things. And it just like reignites a love of reading. That being said, this month, after reading all these books, I am in a bit of a reading slump because I think I overdid it on the horror. But I did really enjoy making that video. I just think it kind of put me in a slight reading slump. So I just feel like it was meant to be that this month would be a really good reading month. We'll see how November and December goes, but I have officially hit 100 books read this year, which I've never done before. So that is so cool to me. And I'm just really excited to have read 100 books. I think that's amazing. I'm not saying that if you don't read 100 books that you're not doing amazing. You're still a reader. You're still doing great. It's just an accomplishment for me that I was really looking forward to, and I did it. So, yay. Let's get into the stats because I always like doing the stats at the beginning. I just feel like it's fun to see and just see how it changes from month to month. So, I read 11 books. I read a total of 3,102 pages. I didn't track. I'm having a hard time tracking my hours listened because I listen on my way to work, but I tend to do listening and reading, so I just have it at 0, but I know that I did listen to books. My average rating was a 3.9, and I read 2 fantasy, a graphic novel, 5 horror, 2 mystery, and 1 romance. And I read all of them physically, but I did probably do dual for a lot of them. Again, that's something I don't track, but I probably should now. And 1 was a debut author, 4 I had read before, and 6 authors were new to me. And now into my ratings. Let's see. I had 2 5 stars, 1 4.5 star, 3 4 stars, 1 3.5 star, 2 1 stars, and 1 DNF. Let's get into the books because that's where it gets interesting. So the first book I'm just gonna kind of talk about quickly because I feel like it's hard to talk about these, especially in a series. Manga. This is the 3rd volume in Spy Family. It's a great series if you haven't read it. It's about a guy who is a spy, and he has given this mission where he needs to infiltrate this school, and so he has to have a daughter go to the school to get to this one high up guy. And so he has to find a wife and daughter, and he doesn't know, but the young girl is a telepath, so she can read his thoughts. And then his wife is also an assassin, and they all don't know each other's secrets, except for the telepath. She obviously knows all their secrets, but it's just so cute. It's wholesome. It's got that found family, which I really like. And it's also just funny and fun. And so this is the 3rd volume I picked up, and I've been really liking them. I think this one was my least favorite so far because I just feel like there wasn't a lot of action. So I ended up giving this 4 stars just because I just felt like it was a little bit slower. But I think that the next book should probably get more into the mystery of it. So yes. So then we have a book that I was really anticipating, and I'm very happy I ended up getting to it because I was focusing on a lot of kind of darker books, and this just brought joy to my heart. And that is The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sungu Mandana. And this is, I believe, her first like cozy kind of fantasy. And I really enjoyed it. It was so fun. It's got House in the Cerulean Sea vibes meets witches meets modern day and a Grumpy Sunshine romance. So if those check all your boxes, I would check this out. I gave this a 4.5 star. The reason I didn't give it 5 stars is because I was looking for more found family, and when I went in, I just wanted more of that. And it's very focused on the romance side of things, which I think if you're a romance reader or you enjoy that, you would really vibe with this. But for me, I just wanted a little bit more time of her with the young girls who are witches and learning their powers, and I didn't get as much of that as I wanted. But that being said, it's a very cozy book. It's definitely about like accepting yourself and being accepted into a community and feeling like you're not alone. And our main character, Micah, she feels alone a lot, and she's felt alone her whole life. And so this is like a story about her realizing that she can have a family too. And I thought it was very sweet, really good. I would highly recommend it. And I had a great time in the cozy reading vlog. I feel like it was just all the vibes. And so I think that made this even better because I was doing a lot of fall things in the book, or in the vlog. So I would highly recommend this. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. So the next book I have is a horror, and it's The Children on the Hill by Jennifer McMahon. This was my first Jennifer McMahon, and I can see why they call her kind of like a cozy horror. It's a Frankenstein retelling of sorts. Like, I don't know if it's really marketed as that, but it's about this woman who runs this psych ward, and her 2 grandkids live outside of the ward, but like on the grounds. And she brings home a patient one day and says that they're going to live with her, and it's a young girl. And then the kids start to befriend her but realize something weird is happening, and they get wrapped up. And it's a dual timeline, so you're following present day as the main character, Vi, is now been in witness protection. She's changed her name, and she is monster hunting, and she has to start confronting her past. And then it's flipped back in the past to her perspective of figuring out and all the stuff that went down in this house. But there's also chapters from a journalist as they were writing about this psych ward and all the things that went down with it. And I gave this 3.5 stars. I feel like it had all the potential, and it was a really fun horror. Like, I had a great time while reading it from front to end, but I feel like I just wouldn't say this was like the most mind-blowing. I see why it's called cozy horror, because it's not trying to have huge commentary on things, and it's just a horror story, and it was fun, and I would recommend it if you're getting into horror, or if you're just looking for like a lighter horror. I think that this could be for you. Not saying there's not creepy parts, it's not as hard-hitting as some of the other ones. And I had a good time, and I would definitely be picking up more of her writing. Her writing's very accessible. I feel like easy to follow. The storyline itself is easy to follow, and if you like dual timelines, I think that this could be a good horror to start with, or to try out especially if you don't like a lot of the darker horror. Then I made a goal to read 1 book a month for the rest of the year so that I can get to the release when it comes out. And so I read Come Tumbling Down by Sean McGuire. This is, I believe, the 5th book in the series, and this one was my least favorite, I think. I gave it 4 stars, and I felt like I don't want to give anything away, so it's really hard to talk about this, but it follows a storyline that I just didn't want to go back to, and I don't know if it really added much to it for me. Well, first of all, let me tell you. So the series is about it's a portal fantasy where these children go through portals, and then one day they're sent back to the real world, and they go to this home for, like, I was gonna say peculiar children, but I think isn't that Peregrine's home for peculiar children? Anyway, they go to this home, and it is where they can kind of come to terms with being back in this world and missing their home, and also just like not fitting into the world they're in anymore. The odd books go into, or at the school, or like an adventure, and then the even books are their stories. Like, so when someone's in a portal, so like the 2nd book goes into an actual portal of the characters, of some of the characters of the 1st book. So this is the 5th book, so it was a adventure type one. I just didn't care to go back to the story it was telling. While I find all of them enjoyable, I didn't hate this by any means. It just wasn't a 5-star because I don't feel like it did anything different. But that being said, I did fly through it and eat it up, so 4 stars for me. Then I read a romance, which is odd for me because I am not a romance reader at all, but I loved it. And it is XX by Erin Sterling. I think what I love about this is it's also a witch story. So this is a story about a girl who in college was dating this guy, and he is Welsh, and he was there like visiting for like a semester, and they dated for 3 months, and then he broke her heart, and so she, in a state of despair and heartbreak, her and her cousin put a hex on him. And years later, he comes back to the town because there is a ritual he has to do for his family to keep magic in the town. And the hex arrives, and shenanigans go down. And it's very over the top. It's dramatic, but it was so much fun. And I really shipped the romance, which was good. But also, I think that the reason I loved it was there was so much more to the story than just the romance. Like, there was magic, and there was this adventure of trying to get rid of this hex and save the town. And so I think that added to it, because if it was just romance, I don't think it would have been for me. And I gave it 4 stars. I just feel like it was fun. It was perfect what I was needing. I read this This was the first book I read coming out of some horror books, and I think it was just like the perfect change to just cushion all the like darker stuff I was reading. I was feeling really heavy from that, and this just made me feel so happy. It was cozy. I flew through it. I think the writing is easy, it's fun, it's a little ridiculous, you know, it can have some borderline cheesy things, but either way, I was living for it, and I picked up The Kiss Curse because I can't wait to get to it, which is a sequel. I don't know, I think it's probably following her cousin, but I'm not sure. And I would definitely read more from Erin Sterling, who is Rachel Hawkins, which I've never read a book from, so I might be picking up some Rachel Hawkins in the future, which is thriller author, I believe. I've had that on my TBR for a year, so I'm glad I didn't put it off for another year. So When the Reckoning Comes by LaTanya McQueen. So this is a horror book, and it's following Mira, and her and her friend Jessie and Celine were friends in high school. And Jessie and Mira go to this plantation one night, and some weird things happen, and then all of their friendship kind of falls apart. But then years later, Celine, who's white, is inviting them to a plantation wedding, and they are both black, and they are trying to understand why she doesn't get why this would be hard for them to go to this plantation wedding. But they go out of obligation to her, but also to kind of like confront what happened back then, and some shit goes down. Oh, sorry. And some stuff goes down. It gets very intense, and it's a kind of ghost story, and it has a lot of commentary and a lot it's trying to say, and I think it does it so well. And I really would recommend this, but it was difficult. There's scenes in here that are just, it's hard to read. But I think that the message is important, and it's a lot about how we don't look at the horrific sides of slavery and things like that in our history, and we really need to. We need to confront those, and I thought this book was so well done. So I gave it 4 stars. I think that there was just some storylines I wanted to expand on a little bit. It was a little fast, and like the build up to the ending was built really well, but then I felt like the ending just went a little fast, and I think I wanted a little more of certain storylines that kind of just dropped off. So yeah, then we get into my DNF. The Pallbearers Club by Paul Tremblay. I have not really DNF'd a book this year. I've soft DNF stuff where I'm like, maybe I'll come back to it later. I just wasn't feeling it. But no, this one I will not be picking back up. It is a friendship story. So the premise is supposed to be that this guy is telling a memoir about why he believes his friend Mercy from high school is a vampire. He's telling the story, but then Mercy herself is injecting in red. She's reading it, and then she's saying like, this never happened, and things like that. And then she'll have whole pages at the end of chapters where she is like giving her thoughts on the chapter and why things were inaccurate. I feel like I was supposed to connect with the main character. If the plot's good enough, I don't need to connect with the character, especially if they're supposed to be unlikable. And I don't know if he was supposed to be unlikable or not, but this book, it's not even just like, it says it's about friendship vibes, but really it just felt like a book of this guy complaining about his life and how things like never work out for him. And then there's just like weird stuff where for a paragraph, he has a back injury, and it goes into like a whole paragraph of like all these things about his back, and it was just like filler stuff that I didn't care about. So it was a slug. I kept picking it up, putting it down, and I only got to, I think, 160-ish pages, something like that, like around here, and I just couldn't do it anymore. I put it down, and I picked up a different book, and I was like, okay, I'll try to come back to it. And as soon as I read that book, I was like, why am I even reading this? Like, I'm not enjoying it, and reading that book showed me how much I was disliking this book. So I DNF'd it, and honestly, I'm not mad about it. I know people were saying like, this isn't the book you think it's going to be, this isn't the horror book you think it's going to be. My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix was at the core a friendship story with some horror thrown in. While I say it's a horror, it is definitely more of a friendship story. I wouldn't even call this really a friendship story, like it kind of was, but I don't know. There was just nothing to connect with in this book for me, and that feels mean because I don't like disliking books, but I really didn't like this book. So I have Murder at the Serpentine Bridge by Andrea Penrose. This is the 6th book, yes, the 6th book to the Rexford and Sloane series. It just came out, and this is actually the arc. This was one of my first arcs, and so I was so happy to get this. I flew through it. I'm gonna give it 4 stars. So this one is following more political things. So there's a lot of people here for this peace conference, and someone is murdered, and they're trying to figure out what's going on because there's a lot of peace deals happening, and so they don't want to have that be jeopardized. I just love this series. It's a fun mystery installment, and I have a great time every time I come back to it. This one wasn't my favorite, out of all of them, but it was still a good time, and I still love the characters that are part of it. And there's also a boy that's brought into it, and he's kind of become friends with Raven and Hawk, which are the two boys in the story. And I really like that, and I hope that that continues for more of the books, because I thought that was a really sweet addition to the story, and I really liked his character. If you haven't read the series, I would highly recommend it. The first one's called Murder at Black Swan Lane, and they're all just mysteries that kind of have a science element to it, so it's a good time. Now for probably the weirdest book I read this month, Catherine House by Elizabeth Thomas. I finally read it, and I'm so happy I did. I have like mixed emotions on it. I'm definitely giving it 5 stars, but it's just like one of those books where I'm like, it was great, but like it kind of gives me the ick, you know? Like something about it, it was so unsettling. It's kind of like Comfort Me with Apples, where it just has this underlying weirdness where the characters are acting like things are pretty normal, but you as a reader know like things are not normal. And I think that's what creeps me out so much. It really just gives me the ick. And this is following a girl, Inez, and she gets into this school, and it's an elite school that only a select people get into. And when they get out, they get to be famous, like lawyers and actresses and whatever. And it's got dark academia vibes, sort of. I would say it's more of a gothic story, which I do like. It's very slow, but then there'll be like these scenes that are just so disturbing. There's some animal cruelty in this, so if that's not something you like, I wouldn't pick this up. But it has like snippets of the dark kind of creepy things, but then a lot of going to college and your friends in college and things like that. But all the whole time there's just like tension to it. And the ending was pretty ambiguous, but I think I really liked it. I can see why it's like a love or hate ending, but I enjoyed it. So yeah, 5 stars. You can check out my blog for more like details, but I had a great time. And well, I wouldn't say I had a great time because it was creepy, but like I had a great time, you know? Okay, anyway, moving on. So the last 2 books I read was Ruth Ware, The It Girl. I read this for Kayla's Books and Lala's, her Literally Dead book club, and I seem to always be reading the picks like the month after. I don't know why that's happened, but it has happened. And this one I think I'm gonna give 3 stars. It's definitely a mystery. Don't go into it thinking it's a thriller, because it's definitely more of a mystery. It does have In My Dreams I Hold a Knife vibes, but less creepy. So in college, this girl Hannah had a roommate, April, and April is brutally killed one day. The murderer is found and tried and is found guilty, and then years later he ends up dying, and Hannah starts to think maybe that what happened wasn't really what happened, and then she's kind of has to think about what actually might have happened and solve the mystery, because she can't live with herself knowing that she put this guy away if he was innocent. So there's a dual timelines. So it's her in the present trying to figure out what's happening, and then it's her in the past, and you're getting like flashbacks to their time in college. And that's why I say it's a lot like In My Dreams I Hold a Knife, because there's a group of friends. I think there's like 6 of them, and you kind of have to go through and see like, did this person do it? Did this person do it? Did this person do it? But there's also like suspects that aren't part of the friend group, and it's that rich drama. Like it's a rich school. I think it's Oxford, if I remember correctly. Yeah, it's Oxford. So there's like that dynamic. So the drama in this is pretty good, but it's a very long book, and I felt like it could have been cut down a little bit, and it didn't have the same level of drama that In My Dreams I Hold a Knife did, that kept me having to know more. This is just like kind of a slow mystery. And so that's what I usually like mysteries, but I think this one, I just saw a lot of things coming, and it was okay. Like that's how I felt about The Woman in Cabin 10, where I'm like, this was good, but it wasn't my all-time favorite. Like I probably won't think about this very much, but I do think I would recommend it to people who are newer to a mystery thriller genre, because I thought it was pretty good. It just was a little long, and it didn't do anything completely new. I think I will continue to pick up Ruth Ware. I just think she's going to be a kind of middle of the road, I know I'm going to have a fine time with her books author, and that's fine. I think it's always good to have those palate cleansers kind of books. So, and then the final book, which I think has to be my favorite book. Let me look. Yeah, I think this is my favorite book that I read this month. So great one to end on, and that's The Hacienda by Isabel Cañas. And this is a gothic horror. So it says it's Mexican Gothic meets Rebecca, which I haven't read Mexican Gothic yet, but it's a slow horror. It's the suspense and eeriness of a ghost story in this is perfect. So this is following her main character Beatrice, and she is forced into this marriage because her father has died. This is post Mexican War for Independence, and her mom are forced to live with family members who don't want them and treat them very badly. So she gets married to this guy when he proposes so that she can have a life for her mom and her. When she gets to this house, it's very strange. There's a lot of creepy things happening, and there's a haunting, and she reaches out to this priest who decides he's going to help her, and a lot of stuff goes down. And the whole book, I was just kind of on the edge of my seat, because whenever you're in this house, the sense of dread and the sense of eeriness and creepiness is so well done. Like, the descriptions in this are so well done, and I liked the two characters. I liked the whole storyline. I really honestly do not have a bad thing to say about this book. It was 5 out of 5 stars for me. I can see why it's not for everyone. And I loved the main character, and I loved the priest. You're also getting the perspective of the priest, so there's like 2 POVs, which I am always a fan of. If those sound like things that you like, I would recommend it because it was amazing. I really think it's a new favorite book of mine. So these are all the books I read. I read 11 books, which is really crazy to me. And I found some hits and I had some misses, which, you know, is bound to happen. I'm hoping that November I can read a little less scary and a little more, like, I'm in a fantasy mood, so we'll see. But anyway, if you want to let me know the favorite book you read this month down below, and if you have any recommendations for books like these, especially the Hacienda or like the Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches or House on the Shoreline Sea. I'm always looking for more books like those. Please let me know because I'm always looking for those recommendations. And yeah, I really appreciate you watching, and I will see you next time.